The old adage is time is money, and if that was true for days on market, we would be very rich right now. All right, let's talk about it. This is the real story with Adam and Sherry. I'm Adam Hamalian,
I'm Sherry Hutchens.
and this is where two broker associates talk about all things real estate. Hey, Sherry,
Hi, Adam.
how are we doing today?
We're doing well. How are you?
Yeah, here we are, beginning of October, well into the fall season, football
Yep.
season, leaves
Oh,
not quite turning.
I'm so excited about football season.
Yeah, wow. For those of you unfamiliar with sarcasm, that's what it looks like when Sherry tries it on. So, football, American football, that's the oblonged ball. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
what, yeah.
Yes.
Um,
I enjoy it more than I used to because the cameras are better and I can actually see what's going on.
y-
In the old days before they had all those overhead cameras on wires, it's like they threw the ball. Where is it? I have no idea what's going on. And
you
they
must
stopped it.
really hate hockey then.
Well, well, okay. Let's just stick with football.
Okay, but you grew up in a Raider family, right? Isn't that true?
I did. Total Raider family until Joe Montana came around, and then my mom ditched the Raiders and was a complete and total 49er fan. She had a frame. I was out of the house by then, but she had a framed picture of Joe Montana in the living room.
I, I think that Jim Plunkett was possibly the nicest professional quarterback of all time. But yes, if we're just going on aesthetics, I would have jumped from Jim Plunkett to Joe Montana also, without a doubt. Now, is it true that you had a run-in with another Raider quarterback?
Yes, that is true.
All right. Okay. Not going to pick that story up. All right. We'll just keep moving along right now.
I'm happy to share it if you want me to share it.
Well, I mean, I grew up. So one of my first memories of professional sports growing up in the East Bay in the 70s was that the A's, the Warriors, and the Raiders all had national championships. And of course, that first Raider won Super Bowl 11
Mhm.
was Snake, and that was who you had your encounter with. So of course, I want to hear the story of you rubbing shoulders, meeting Kenny Stabler.
I think he wanted to rub more than shoulders, to be honest with you. I was
Oh,
at a dance club, I think in Hayward. I might have still been in school.
when you
Um,
say school, I hope you mean college.
yes, yes. Oh no, I was not in eighth grade.
Okay.
Um, and he was after me all night. I didn't really know who he was until someone clued me in, and then it was like, not interested and not leave me alone. I danced with him a couple times. He wanted my phone number. He was all over me.
All right.
And
All right.
I'm pretty sure he was married at the time, so not sure what he was doing picking up young women
I,
in a club. But yeah,
I,
that's my story.
all right. Well, he was a professional quarterback out of Alabama. That's all I'm going to say. All right. Um, so we established football, but really we're here not to talk about sports. That's a different podcast.
Yep. Yes,
Check
it
out
is.
New Heights, I think's the name of that football one. But we're right behind them on the ratings, I'm sure, as long as until one of us marries, Bad Bunny or something. Okay. We're here to talk about real estate. So
Or
let's talk.
Taylor Swift.
Well, I think she's taken.
Yeah,
I don't think I can compete unless you want to compete. Can you compete with Uncle Travie?
I cannot compete.
Yeah, I
No,
don't know.
no.
No redwood trees here. All right.
Apparently, I nobody can compete with Uncle Travis. So,
Yeah. All right. So let's talk real estate since that's what we know about, and that's
all right.
what we're here to talk about. So this is our periodically when we finish a quarter, we look back on the previous quarter of the year and see what's happened in the real estate market. And it's really, if you've been listening, we give little updates every week, but this third quarter was, there's lots of things that are noteworthy when we look at it as an aggregate. Do
Mhm.
you have any initial thoughts as we get into the conversation about it?
My initial thoughts are that all over the media, it's market, the real estate market is slowing down, and within our own company, we are seeing a slowdown, except you and I are busy. So I'm having trouble reconciling the two things.
Yeah. When my friends ask me about it, usually say I'm working harder to make the same amount of money. And nobody should listen. He should feel sorry for us. That's just the way business is. Sometimes
Yep.
it's smooth, and sometimes it's harder.
Yep.
And I think that part of that is an opportunity to demonstrate our value compared to other agents. And there's other good agents. So I'm not suggesting we're the best at the top of the heap, but you and I spend a lot of time making sure that we keep on top of the market. We know our business, we know the contracts, we know new forms, legal aspects,
Mhm.
how houses are built. We spend a lot of time developing our skill set to be valuable to our clients, and I think that reputation shines through.
Mhm.
I'd say the other thing that has separated us from the general real estate is that we're consistent in our marketing.
Mhm.
For instance, we do a podcast.
Mhm.
What are some other things you think that help keep us in front of our sphere of influence on a regular basis?
Well, we do a monthly newsletter, a monthly postcard. Most months we do a pop by. We try to touch our clients at least once a month, sometimes more than once.
You mean like the way Kenny touch? No, that you meant that's something else. You touch them
That's
different. Okay.
football. This
Oh,
is real
okay.
estate.
Sorry. All right. All right.
Um, I think that from personal experience, when I went into the recession in 2007 and 8, I didn't have an established sphere. I was still, fairly new in the real estate game, 7, 8 years, I guess 7 years. And I didn't have a base yet. And you and I have a base. We've got a fairly big sphere of influences. It's known in real estate. Many repeat clients, use us when they're doing all kinds of real estate transactions, whether it's for themselves or for someone in their family or helping with an investment. And they come to us and they refer us as well. And that's the basis of our business. When you don't have a sphere, like I did in 2007 and 8, or some of these newer agents that just got into the business in the last few years, I think it's harder to sustain business when things slow down.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's true.
What do you
Absolutely.
think it is?
All of those things you just said. I think that one of the things that um, agents don't want to fully embrace as they try and use modern tools like social media or podcasts is that I think it comes down to maintaining real life
Hmm.
relationships with people.
Hmm.
And I think in the current general environment in our culture, those real life relationships can be harder to maintain
Hmm.
just because we become so technical, but then also conversations become more implied about other things. And so I think finding the time and space to meet with people for coffee or to quilt or to golf or at church or wherever, but being available to people in real life as a friend, and then you build trust with them as a human being, and
Yep.
then they happen to use you as real estate, and
Yep.
vice versa. You might use them for whatever kind of business they're in.
Authentic relationships.
Yeah, yeah. We're
That's
not
what
into
all
it.
about real estate.
Right. It's a co-traveler, right? You're getting to know people not for the purpose of real estate. You're getting to know people in real life because it's the relationships that keep us sane in such kind of uneven times.
Yep.
Uh,
Yep.
and it happens to have secondary effects of trusted relationships
Yeah.
in other ways. Well, let's talk a little bit about what happened in the third quarter in our market. So, for those of you who've been following us, know that there's 10 cities that we normally track, and I'll see if I can rattle them off. This is the area that we do most of our transactions. So it's Alamo, Clayton, Concord, Danville, Lafayette, Martinez, Moraga, Orinda,
Pleasant Hill.
Pleasant Hill, Walnut Creek.
See, that's why I left Pleasant Hill out.
Sorry, Pleasant Hill. I was trying to do it in alphabetical order, and
You
it's
did
like,
a good
Wait,
job.
what comes after Moraga? I knew there was something before Walnut Creek, but because I was counting on my fingers, because good thing we don't do more than 10. I'd have to take my shoes off.
Exactly.
Anyway, so we track those, and just to kind of do simplicity, we do most of our numbers just looking at detached homes. Obviously, condos and townhouses are a significant portion of our market, particularly when you fold into that Rossmore, which is in Walnut Creek.
Hmm.
But we just find for the simplicity of comparing market to market, we just look at detached homes.
Yep.
So when we talk about generalities, we're going to talk in generalities, but that's what we're looking at, those single family homes in those 10 cities. So we had seen a decrease in inventory from 2022 going into 23 and 24. Did we see that continue in the 2025 or what happened to inventory?
Should we talk about why, first of all, where there
Sure.
was a decrease in inventory?
Yeah.
So in 2020 and 2021 and the beginning of 2022, interest rates were in the 2.5% to 3% range. We sold a lot of houses then. The people they couldn't work, they couldn't leave their house. So, hey, what the heck? Let's go buy a house. So when the interest rates started to go up, and they went up quick, they went up 7 times in 1 year and ended up in the high sevens and close to eight. Nobody was buying houses anymore. And anybody who had a 2.5% or a 3% interest rate was not willing to sell and buy a different house because why would they go from 3% interest rate up to almost eight?
And it wasn't just the people that bought houses, it's people that refinanced into 2.5% and 3%.
Absolutely, yes. So everybody's sitting on houses. There and the their number of buyers, obviously decreased a little bit, or at least they sat back to watch and see how long it was going to take for rates to go back into the 2.5s or threes. And surprise, they didn't. So
No.
yeah, that accounted for our lack of inventory. You and I had lots of buyers at that time, so we were having trouble finding houses for them.
Yeah. We'll come back to that because
Yep.
the buyer challenge is still out there, but
Yes, it
we'll
is.
address that when we get there. Okay, so that's what took the inventory down over 23 and 24. So
Yep.
what happened this year then?
The inventory is uh, the numbers that I'm looking at there, it's not that much different.
Yeah.
I mean, not really that much different. We've got a little, well, I mean, what I'm looking at, the numbers that I'm looking at, we've got maybe 5% more inventory.
Right. So they slightly gone up, but
Yeah.
nothing. We're nowhere near the 2021 numbers, but
No.
we have more inventory. All
Yeah.
right. Well, that's interesting.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm looking at a number right now in 2020, and these are sold numbers. There were 1,803 sales in those 10 cities in 2020, and in third quarter, that's third quarter.
Yeah.
In one quarter, and this year we've had 908, so that's half.
Yeah. Just crazy,
Yeah.
crazy the difference.
Yep. Yep.
And I think if we were to go back and do like a 10-year average, so before the pandemic, I think we'd see about 1,400 on average in those 10 cities is kind
Yep.
of what we normally see.
Yeah, that's about right.
Yeah. So as we look at the third quarter of this year, we've seen a slight inventory year over year in
Hmm.
sales.
Yep.
Um, but there's been some interesting things that have happened. So we've seen the number of days on market really explode and almost double. So
Hmm.
a year ago, that number was 21 days on the market average.
Hmm.
And we can play with average and median. I'm going to
Yeah.
just use average for a
This
moment.
week. Yeah.
So last year, third quarter, 21 days on the market. This year, 38. So almost double.
Yeah.
42 would have been double. So you can see
Yeah.
how close we are to double. So that's interesting. We have a little bit more inventory, but we have a lot more days on market.
Mhm. Yep.
Um, and the average sales price a year ago, list to sales price, was slightly higher in the third quarter last year.
Hmm.
But this year, the not only is the list price down from last year, we saw nearly 50% of the homes sold for below their list price.
Hmm.
So either they reduced their list price and then sold for that lowered price, or the offer they eventually received was less than the price of the home when it was listed. So it's definitely we've seen the brakes hit the market on the results. Can you give any anecdotes just kind of from our business this quarter? Does that match what we saw?
It does match what we've been seeing. I ran some comps yesterday for a client who's thinking about writing an offer out in Clayton. And one of the model matches for the property she's interested in was listed and had three. offers, three offers.
Yeah,
That's a lot in this market.
that is amazing.
And it only sold for $2,000 over the list price.
Oh my goodness.
So, and that's in like the 850 range. So
That,
entry level Clayton. And with three, I mean, in 2020, it would have been 100,000 over.
yeah. Well, it's
So,
interesting. When I first got in the market, first got in the business rather, my manager said, "Oh, you should add 10,000 for every offer that you think there's going to be." So, I mean, that's a really kind of a silly rule of thumb, but just kind of for a new agent, didn't
no,
have
they used to
it.
teach that. They
Yeah,
used
but but there's I mean, it was in that one, it was 1,000 for every extra offer.
I know, right?
That's kind of,
And it was a good house. There was nothing wrong with this house. Beautiful views of Mount Diablo. So, and we're not advocating that everybody, going back to a market where everybody's overpaying for houses
yeah,
or overbidding for houses. We're just comparing how it used to be 5 years ago and what's going on now.
yeah.
So, what the other thing I think that is having an influence on our market is interest rates, right?
Well, that's interesting because yes, the interest rates, we finally saw the Fed cut the prime rate, which is not it doesn't directly affect lending. It's just kind of an indirect correlation.
Mhm.
And rates have come down from their mortgage rates have come down from their peak probably about 15 months ago. And it's been bouncing up and down and it's kind of a normal way. And we're seeing things now in the sixes that we haven't seen for a couple years. And six historically as a pretty reasonable rate when we look over the long term, 25 years horizon. But what's interesting is that because the lenders all baked that in, when the Fed announced their rate cut 2 weeks ago, interest rates bumped up a quarter point. You would have just assumed they'd gone down, but
Yeah.
no, that's not what happened. Uh,
Six is a good rate. I mean, when I first got into the business, I watched rates drop down to six, and it just, triggered a refinance flurry.
yeah,
I refinanced at the time because it was like, wow, 6%,
yeah.
that's a good rate. And now it's like, oh, yeah, six is fine, but we missed three.
Exactly. Or if you're in three, you're
Yeah.
kind of stuck with it. So
Yeah.
I'm not sure that interest rates are affecting the buyer pool. Even though I just said they went up a quarter point, they're still compared to the last 24 months, 36 months.
Mhm.
They are maybe not 36, 24, 30 months.
Mhm.
They're pretty stable and at
Mhm.
the lower end of that bracket. So I
Yep.
don't think that that's affecting the buyers, but I think we are finding sellers a little more reticent to do work on their property to sell because as the prices have softened 3 to 5% year over year,
Yep.
um, yeah, and these long days on markets and the uncertainty of it, but sellers are much more reticent to invest into the kinds of things they were doing 5 years ago. So it's
Yep.
very common for us to recommend paint and flooring to prep a house for sale. It's
At the minimum.
some of the easiest ways to freshen up a house and make it look clean and not lived in. Nobody wants to buy a house that has somebody else's dirt really evident. So you can try and wash all of your walls and the fingerprints off and patch and paint
Yeah.
spot paint, but it's just easier to just paint the whole thing, make it all
Yep.
look even. And with
Yep.
flooring, it's a little bit more nuanced. Most carpeting will show traffic wear, and it's hard to get that out. So it makes sense to just replace the carpet. Sometimes refinishing floors, sometimes putting in new wood or engineered or LVP, just depending upon your price point. And right now, we're seeing sellers much more reticent in investing that kind of money because that
Mhm.
can add up, and they're like, "I'm not sure I'm going to get that back." Um,
And we're reticent to recommend it because we're not sure that they're going to get it back. It used to be that we would say, if you spend $1, we'll get you 10 back.
yeah,
We can't say that anymore.
no.
And
Eh,
the polar opposite of that, sellers not wanting to do any work and just putting their house on the market, are the buyers over here saying, if I'm paying 6.5 or 7%, I want a house that is completely done.
and right, so you have this like standoff, like, yeah, that's a fine house, but it just looks tired. I don't want to buy a tired house
Yeah.
because everything they've been looking online for the last 4 or 5 years because they finally now are ready, but they've been thinking about buying for a long
Yep.
time. And they are used to seeing these beautiful houses,
Yep.
and now they're
Completely.
seeing something that's it's still a good house. We are very fond of saying, I'm very fond of saying it's floor plans, not square footage that sells. And we see
Yeah.
great floor plan houses because that's the hardest thing to fix. But
Yeah.
you can paint and do flooring. Obviously, it's easier to do it when it's vacant, but you can do
Yeah.
that anytime. And yet we're still seeing, I mean, I would never talk a buyer into a house they didn't want.
Yeah.
But if a buyer has vision, there's things out there. But for buyers who are like, hey, I work all day. I work a 60-hour week. You think I want to deal with the all of that, especially after I move in? I got to think about my belongings and am I going to do it in sections and
Yeah.
just the like, yeah, I'm just going to stay put. So we
Also, if I'm going to have a monthly mortgage payment at 6.5 or 7%, I don't have any more money to put into the house.
exactly,
You
yeah,
know, I put it all into my down payment, and now I'm going to make payments on a higher mortgage than I would if I had bought in 2021 or 2022.
yeah.
So,
So
yeah, it's an interesting time. I have said, a few times over the last few weeks, nobody's happy. The buyers aren't happy because they can't find the houses they want at the price they want at the interest rate that they had, and the sellers aren't happy because they didn't sell in 2021 where we were at the top of the market and they could have gotten overbids and walked away with a ton of money. And they're still trying to get those kinds of prices, but there aren't buyers in mostly who are willing to pay them. So
yeah.
it's a tough time.
So it's changing subject slightly. Do you think that the new buyer broker agreement, so that's the agreement that buyers and their agents sign before they can go look at houses together,
Mhm.
and that came in because of a lawsuit about 18 months or about last summer, a year
Well,
ago.
it settled August 2024.
Yeah, yeah. Do you think that's had an effect on any of this buyers shopping or reticence?
We have not had any problems with it.
Yeah.
No, have not had any issues with it. We, have to present it to buyers before we can take them out and show them a house. And everybody seems to understand what that means and that they are now responsible for paying their broker's fee. If at a later date the seller doesn't step in and say, I'll take care of that for you. But I don't know. Do you think it's been a problem?
No, I mean there's a couple fold to it. One is I am enjoying the clarity between us and our clients that they are we negotiate directly with them about what our compensation is.
Yeah.
But the other thing that I didn't know what was going to happen, and now that we're a year into it, is when the buyers are writing an offer and then ask the seller to pay our commission out of the proceeds of the sale. I thought we'd see more variety in that.
Mhm.
And the reality is, 100% of our buyers who are using a loan, and then on the other side, when we're representing a seller and the buyer of their home is using a loan, 100% of those, the buyer has asked for the seller to pay the commission,
Yeah.
and 100% of the time on a loan they have.
Yep.
And I think there was one all cash offer where that didn't happen. And then recently we had an offer from a broker who they were buying them for themselves, and so they didn't ask for a commission. So there was a couple on the financed ones. It's 100%, and then a couple of the other ones
I
were
think St. Ives, they paid their broker directly. It was a
yeah.
cash purchase. It was an
Ye-
investor.
Yeah, that was a cash purchase. I think
Yeah.
that I knew there was one. I couldn't think of which one it was,
Yeah.
but I'm
It
pretty,
just
yeah.
occurred to me that that was the one.
Yeah.
She did not ask for a commission
So
from
that
the seller.
That doesn't seem to be affecting the market though. So I
Nope, I
think
don't
that
think so either.
yeah. So I think that what we're seeing sellers but we are seeing there was a third of the properties that sold in the third quarter that sold in less than a week. It was 25% actually. It wasn't a
Yeah.
third, 25%. And if you were to go back and look at those, they're one of two categories. Either they were just really well done homes that had everything done, finished about it, people could move into it, or they were a complete dump and it was a fixer and it was priced at like $1 and say,
Yeah.
hey, investors. So it's
Yep.
one extreme or the other.
Yep.
But 75% of the homes either they were really nicely done and overpriced, because that's still, some agents are still wrestling with that, but more likely they were livable homes.
Mhm.
Um, not, I mean, not just barely livable, fine homes,
Mhm.
but just weren't quite right. Either something with the floor plan or finishes, and the
Yeah,
buyer's like, yeah, I don't need to move.
yeah,
And
not in love with it.
I think the other thing affecting the buyer is a general market uncertainty. So we talked a little bit about interest rates, and now we talked about property condition, but we really didn't talk about one of the overlying factors that is
Yep,
keeping buyers from jumping in, and that's just general cultural uncertainty. Some of it financial, some of it political. Um,
yeah.
what are the things in our market that you think are keeping buyers like, yeah, I don't want to take a risk right now?
My opinion is that primarily, 99% of it is uncertainty with what's going on in the world.
Yeah.
Politically, we were in the middle of a very active spring market, and then all of a sudden in April, there started to be talk about tariffs, and our market came to a halt. It struggled through what is traditionally the busiest 3 months of the year, March, April, end of May. And in April, it stopped. And we did not see what we normally see. And I personally think that it all had to do with politics. And I mean, all markets hate uncertainty. And we were right in the middle of that. So,
I think initially we wondered whether it was the tariffs themselves, but I think that it's not specifically the tariffs. I think it's just the uncertainty about on any given day, what's the news cycle going to feed us,
yeah.
and how will X fill in the affect. And one of the very real things that's not actually coming out of Washington, but is more local to us, is we've seen a kind of a cessation of the tech buyer who
Mhm.
it was very common for the tech people to have a large down payment from maybe stock options or just accumulated wealth, and putting a huge amount, maybe like $1 million down on a
Yeah.
$2 million house.
Yeah.
And we've seen that buyer really dry up. We haven't seen that, and there's a couple reasons. And this is the way AI is disrupting the market, is that all these tech companies have done some form of layoffs. And even though they might be
One.
rehiring around AI, I think it's put everybody is like, huh, I wonder what's going to happen to my job. I don't want to take a risk right now.
Yeah, yeah. For those of you listening from outside of the area, the Bay Area is heavily influenced by the technology industry and the money that it brings into this marketplace.
Yeah.
So when things get a little bumpy down in Silicon Valley, it reverberates through any of the areas where you can buy and still commute to Silicon Valley, and that's part of our
Yeah.
area that where we work. So.
Um,
um, there's not much we can do about, politics and how it affects us. And the odd thing is the stock market is going gangbusters. So that does not make sense, right?
yeah.
Buying houses, but they're making a ton of money in stocks. I guess they can't liquidate when
Yeah.
they're going up, up, up.
Yeah. I don't think that the rental market has softened a little bit in our area too, which is kind of ironic. Usually when we see sales go down, rentals get a little bit more robust.
Hmm.
Um, but it just kind of I think there's just there's less people transitioning housing. They're just all staying put and like, I'm going to deal with this because I don't know what's going to happen to my income. So not even
Yeah.
making changes there. You
Yeah.
know, um, changing subjects again a little bit. I went to the Rossmore marketing group this morning, which is, we're recording this on a Tuesday. That's when that meeting happens. And uh, the broker who leads the meeting was reading off at different price points the number of price reductions, and it was really kind of crazy. So I came home and did some research. Of the 81 homes for sale in Rossmore, 43 of them have had a price reduction. So more than 50% of them had a price reduction.
Oh,
And in the third quarter of the 112 units that sold, 49 of them had a price reduction. So not quite 50% there in the third quarter. So it's just, um, the Rossmore market continues to be in a little bit of a free fall in
Yeah.
value and just hard to get things sold. Although the inventory down to 81 is, I think, the lowest it's been all year. We've been in the
Yeah.
90s for most of the year
Yeah.
and been having about 10 homes go in the market or go pending every week,
Yeah.
weekly approximately. And this last week there was just seven, so it's close enough when you do
Yeah.
those numbers. But a 3 month supply in Rossmore is kind of a good thing to pay attention to. And I think that the average days on market in the rest of our area for single family homes is shorter than that, but it's up, it's 28 days. So
Yeah.
or no, what did I say? I said it was 38 days this
38
quarter,
days.
38
Yeah.
days. So more than a month. We're creeping back into some historical averages.
Those are things that we're not used to dealing with. We have not had to deal with long days on market in a long time. And the other thing that we have not had to deal with is buyers coming back and asking for repairs or credits.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not, what's disappointing for sellers is they might take an initial offering less than their list price, and then the buyer's still coming back and asking for a credit.
Yeah. Yeah.
All the more reason to do pre-sale inspections so that you don't have that second round of negotiations. It makes it really harder in the best case scenario for a buyer to say, yeah, I saw that on the report before I wrote my offer, but I still want a credit.
Yeah.
They can ask and you can say no, but it makes it, you don't want to have to put the house back on the market. So there's a little kind of um, a bind going on there. So knowing your players is really important in this market as well.
Yeah, spending $1,500 on home, pest, roof, pool, if you've got it, sewer lateral inspections is the best insurance you have against having somebody come back and ask for something later after they're in contract. So,
Yeah. We had a house that we're prepping that our seller agreed to look at a preemptive offer. And it was really surprising because our seller had done a pre-sale home, passed in roof inspection.
mhm,
And in this preemptive offer, they wrote with their inspection contingency still in place.
yeah,
And it was really surprising because typically we think of, if you're going to write a preemptive offer, you're getting a special privilege and you should take more of the risk on yourself because the seller's taking the risk of not exposing it to the open market.
mm,
So you need to compensate them for taking that risk. And
yeah,
one of the ways that you can do that is by, especially in this case where we had done all these reports, is like, I will take on the risk of anything that I don't see here.
yeah.
So it's kind of surprising, but that's, I think, indicative of the mixed market we're in.
Yeah, we've had a couple things happen this year that have not happened. Well, one of them never had happened where we had a buyer submit an offer and we counter offered just to clean up terms, not even price or anything, and they just disappeared. I mean, crickets,
Didn't
not
even,
a word,
yeah, didn't
not
even
even
reject the
straight,
counteroffer, just didn't say anything.
just disappeared. I've never had that happen. So that was kind of a odd thing, but there's all kinds of, I mean, we can get creative when the market starts to change. And we have been on the buy side where we have, well, we haven't written an offer and then disappeared. Thank you.
No.
We would never do that. But, we recently, had to sit down and remember how to use the request for repairs document, which has changed since 2020 because it's been so long since we used it, you
Yep.
know?
Yeah.
And that's for asking seller to do something for our buyer. So yeah, fun times.
Well, yeah, like I said earlier, we're working harder for the same amount of money. Don't feel sorry for us, but yeah, it definitely working harder.
Yeah,
Trying to keep the dike together, put your finger in the hole.
we're lucky to do what we do. We
Yeah,
both enjoy it.
nice to have each other to do it too.
Absolutely.
All
So,
right. Well, any other closing thoughts before we sign off?
no, I think we covered it.
All
Yeah.
right. Next week, we're going to have a special guest with us, Devonna Brazier from the Director of Outreach from Walnut Creek Presbyterian Church. She's going to talk about our annual giving drive, well, their annual giving drive, and then how we're going to encourage our
Yeah.
sphere to participate in that. So please tune into that.
She
And
was the best guest last year. I learned a lot from her about
yeah, Yeah,
Yeah.
so excited to have her back. And then in a couple weeks, I'm trying to schedule someone to talk about solar because solar has changed in the last year or two with some
Mhm.
regulations. And so
Yep.
hoping to get this guy on who I've been talking to. So, all right, I think that's it for right now.
Yep.
Dorothy was right. There's no place like home. See you next time.
Bye, everybody.